That this House has considered the Science and Discovery Centre supports for education in science and careers in STEM subjects. And it's a pleasure to speak today with you and the Chair, Madam Chairman, and to have the opportunity to discuss this vital subject. This debate is extremely timely as we talk this week about the roadmap to recovery and our ambitious plans to consolidate the UK's position as a world leader of science and innovation. And I'd like to start by thanking the Association for Science and Discovery Centres for their work and support, and in particular Dr Penny Fiddler, Chaz Bishop, Linda Condon and Professor Alice Roberts for their work and their discussions with me, and every staff member, volunteer, everyone who teaches and inspires science. I'll first talk about science's role in our society, before moving on to the role of science and discovery centres and support for our education, workforce and careers in STEM subjects. Science brings hope and progress towards a better future. We have seen throughout this pandemic the solutions and the way out have been driven by science. And now we talk about new vaccines and new treatments, built on the back of thousands of hours of research and development and an immense scientific and engineering workforce. Throughout history, the UK has been central to many scientific innovations and discoveries, from Jenner's work on the smallpox vaccine to Watson, Crick and Rosalind Franklin's discovery of DNA, the seed that grew to offer hope today for our world-leading genomic sequencing programme surveying new COVID variants. And science also offers hope for the future when we look at broader challenges that we face. Climate change. We look to science to clean up our pollution and provide sustainability. Novel threats. We look to science to respond and defend us. Economic pressures and drop in productivity. We look to science to innovate. Even how we are going to talk in this debate today, for members appearing on Zoom, we look to science to keep us connected. Scientific method is founded on the principle that one can never prove, only disprove, which means that we will always strive for better understanding, ever challenging and changing, ever improving. Science is a deeply human endeavour that dares, with uncompromising audacity, that nothing is beyond the reach of mankind's understanding, that knowledge can be gained on our world and the universe understood through the tools of hard work, discipline, careful observation. With each discovery, built on the work of others, all part of this great human endeavour, striving and yearning and learning and progress. We depend on it for our future prosperity, for our health and well-being, for our very survival. And we need a future workforce ready to build on the work that we do today, make new discoveries, build the machines and buildings, and offer new hope for generations to come. We must invest in it and ensure it sits centre stage of our national plans, beginning with education and reaching right through our social, cultural and economic policies. The government has rightly made science, innovation, research and development the backbone of its plans for economic recovery and sustainability, to turn us into a science superpower. I would argue, return us to being a science superpower. We must celebrate science, we must teach it to our children, but most of all, we need to build and consolidate our scientific workforce for the future. Now, we know that women and people from disadvantaged backgrounds are underrepresented in science, technology, engineering and maths, the so-called STEM subjects. Stereotypes and social barriers can mean that many young people are not exposed to science or consider it alien. Science, maths and engineering can be portrayed as unfeminine. And sadly, Hansard can't record me sort of tutting in disgust at the nonsense of this statement, but there we are. And here is where science and discovery centres come in, playing a vital role in breaking down these barriers. Science and discovery centres, community hubs of science engagement, showcase the wonder of science. They take a lead role in our nation's engagement with science, where people of all ages can learn and discover what science is for themselves, as well as supporting schools to bring the science curriculum to life. Now, science can often be seen as dry and intellectual and, dare I say, geeky, but at its core is the experiment and observation of the world and its natural phenomena. Science and discovery centres reintroduce this link and its wonder in a way that's interesting, exciting, but above all, accessible. And as with all engagement activities, it's their staff and volunteers who are the beating heart of the institutions and transfer their wonder of science onto the next generation. Be it through launching a water rocket, touching a lunar lander, building an earthquake-resistant tower, or something as simple as watching leafcutter ants demolish a plant. Science and discovery centres allow us all to discover science and nature. And pre-pandemic, over the course of a year, they showed almost 10 million school-aged children the wonder of science. They inspired disadvantaged and underrepresented groups into education and set the path to careers in STEM subjects. Now, of course, science engagement is not limited to science and discovery centres. In my constituency, Royal Holloway University and Brooklands College do great science and engineering engagement activities respectively. And I want to celebrate today all centres of learning and science engagement. Dramatic pause while I wait for the chimes to finish. But in particular, I want to call on the government to support them as we open up and as part of our plan for the recovery of education after COVID. The COVID pandemic has hit everyone hard, and science and discovery centres, like many other charities, have had to close their doors. Many of their staff have been made redundant. Some have shifted their offering to virtual, but it's not quite the same. It's just not the same as being in a centre, of seeing science in action, up close and personal. And we've heard a lot about the impact that the COVID pandemic has had on children's education. And rightly, the department is focused on how we can ensure that our children do not become the COVID generation. We've worked very hard over the years to support and broaden access to careers in STEM to disadvantaged groups. The school minister has rightly worked hard to increase uptake for STEM subjects at A-level for women. And science and discovery centres are a key part of our educational offering, enriching the school experience and inspiring people to the opportunities of a career in science. I've spoken many times about the pandemic being a pandemic of inequality, that it's accentuated existing health inequalities, that those who are already worse off in our society are being hit the hardest. And sadly, this is also the case in education. I regularly hear from the teachers in my constituency their worries about the differential impact on children, that those who are already disadvantaged will have these inequalities entrenched. And this also affects the enrichment offered by science and discovery centres. With school trips off and centres closed, teachers are having to make careful financial decisions given the costs of education during the pandemic. And of course, those pressures are going to be highest in deprived areas, where the need for educational enrichment is greatest. Where visiting a science and discovery centre may be that spark of wonder, leading someone onto a different path to a career in science, technology, engineering and maths. Science and discovery centres have benefited from the main headline financial support schemes such as Furlough, but many have missed out on sector-specific support, not being seen as cultural institutions, and so are really struggling. They need to open their doors again to all of us, but in particular, school children. And I'd ask the Minister, who I know is passionate about ensuring equality of opportunity for all and the role of education in achieving this, that in a world of competing pressures, the vital work that science and discovery centres do is supported within our plans for recovery of education. This debate today is very personal to me. As a young boy growing up, I was inspired by the wonder of science by my parents. And this was nurtured and reinforced by the trips I took to science museums and nature reserves, many of which would now be seen as science and discovery centres. Today, I try to pass on to my own children the wonder of science, be it through watching tadpoles turn into frogs or seeing dinosaurs and space rockets at the science and discovery centres. This debate today is a celebration of the amazing work of our science and discovery centres and all those who inspire our love of science across our communities. But it's also a plea to ensure that the current generation of school children do not miss out on these amazing opportunities to discover and explore the possibilities science offers, to pursue careers in STEM subjects, and to be the ones to lead future innovation and provide the hope and inspiration for future generations. Every child needs the opportunity to discover science. We cannot let the pandemic extinguish science's spark of wonder for our next generation.